Hello and welcome back to my garden. It's Julie here from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. You'll notice that at no point there did I mention that I was a gardener. So I am asking you, if you are a gardener, a flower farmer, somebody with more expertise with me, I would love it if you would share your knowledge and experience with me in the comments. Now, last week, did you watch last week's video? I was regretting my mulching shortcut because some of the native geraniums which had been cut down from this little bit of the garden area was starting to sprout through my mulch because I hadn't put a thick enough layer of mulch onto my garden because I was, well, basically lazy. I should have put 10 centimetres down. I probably put 5 centimetres down, and if you watched last week's video you'll know that was because I just found it like too much like hard physical work, manoeuvring the wheelbarrow to the compost heap in a quite a confined space, having to physically shovel compost into my wheelbarrow. The easiest bit, of course, is when you empty the wheelbarrow and then mush it all around with your hands. But I was spreading it too thinly because I couldn't face the prospect of about 20 trips to the compost heap and back. So not only am I left with my native geraniums, which are starting to push through the mulch, and I don't mind that too much because what I'm going to do is to keep them as clumps of ground cover rather than having them spread everywhere. But I've also got some seedlings showing through. So my question of the video is, how do you know when you've got seedlings growing whether they are weeds or actually something that you might want to encourage to be in your garden? Well, my first port of call when I've got any gardening questions is to ask my husband. And then, of course, he got into a philosophical debate about a weed just being a plant that's growing in the wrong place. So I said, well, aside from that, can you just tell me whether there's a difference, how I can spot a weed as opposed to something that would be useful for my garden? So this is what I mean. Is that a weed? And this here and here? I know that this is Japanese knotweed, and I know I'm never going to get rid of it, but I can just pull at it and weaken it a little bit. It's not Japanese knotweed. Did I just say Japanese knotweed? Bindweed was what I meant to say, so I'm going to pull out those little bits. But I've got little seedlings growing absolutely everywhere. Wouldn't it be lovely if they were actually going to grow into plants that I could, well, flowers that I could cut and use in my flower arrangements? But what if they're just weeds, and if I leave them to grow, are they going to take over my freshly tended beds? Now, if I decide that those seeds are actually weeds, I can just pinch them out. There's another one there, but I'm not going to have quite the same luck with this grass. So originally, this was a little tortoise enclosure, so there was grass. Well, a sort of very bare patch of grass, really, and I don't want the whole of my cutting patch taken over with grass. So I am going to use my trowel or my garden fork to loosen the surface and pull out the grass, sort of a spot weeding as and when I need to, and try and keep that under control. Look, all those coffee bags which never quite rotted down on the compost heap. So trying to keep it tidy with my trug to one side, going to loosen the soil and pull out the grass, which I now consider to be a weed. And also the chunky bits of wood that have been in my mulch. Oh look, I think, oh, I thought I'd found a worm. Perhaps not. You definitely need a garden fork. Pulling at the grass just isn't quite doing the job. I guess it'll come a time when I need to decide whether I actually do need to remulch and do it properly instead of taking the shortcuts that I took. Little bits of bindweed here. I'm never going to get rid of the bindweed, but if I keep on top of it, it hopefully won't become too much of a problem. It's got these spaghetti like roots, and I think it's one of those plants that if you leave a little bit in the ground cut, it then roots from that. And as my husband always says, if it was difficult to grow, Julie, everybody would want it, because of course it's got those lovely white flowers. I'm pleased to see that as I'm digging down that there is moisture in the soil, so it's not too dry. I've set myself a task of keeping on top of my garden without spending ages and ages on it and having to, resenting it and thinking it's going to be this huge chore. Right, that is some of the root from my native geraniums. I'm trying to concentrate it in certain parts of my little garden, rather than having it as a ground cover that's going to be competing with my planting space. So I'm literally only going to spend 10 minutes here. Just keep it under control, working by the maxim of little, little and often, and hope I'll start to see some rewards, and that'll spur me on to do more and more in my gardening from scratch cutting garden. Can you see my worm doing its thing? And over here, what looks to be like a really healthy seedling. But is it a weed? So that's my spot weeding done, and now for the reward. But is it really worth cutting your own flowers in the garden? How long are they going to last? And at this point, I wish I was filming this video just one day earlier, because my flowers looked absolutely stunning for 6 days, and I was really pleased with that. But just overnight, they've all decided to die. So what better time with my compost bin next to me to put this lot in the compost heap and cut myself some more fresh flowers to enjoy indoors. And into the bin this lot goes, apart from those little bits which I might possibly be able to salvage for another arrangement. So I might as well water my garden with what was left, and then I can decide whether there's anything worth keeping. So the lavender I will keep, and the little bits of sedum, I've got plenty of life left in those. Oh, the cosmos was absolutely beautiful right up until yesterday, and I've immediately forgotten the name of my white flowers here. Should I even try Stygia? Is something ending in Stygia. I can't remember whether it begins with an S or a P. Not quite sure. So what I will do is good hygiene in your vases. I will be scrubbing these out when I get back into the kitchen and putting them up on my kitchen windowsill ready to use next time. But in the meantime, I'm going to pick out the bits of flower that have gone over on this stem here, recut the stem, and I've got a jug of water across to the side. Now, my Astrantia has gone a bit droopy, and I'm just wondering whether if I recut the stem, it might spurt back into life. We'll have to wait and see. So as I've put everything back into my little jug, recut the stems, they've got two chances really. It's either going to work and they're going to give me a few more days' pleasure, or they're just going to die. And if they die, the next day or so, it'll be straight onto the compost heap. But I will be enjoying the fresh flowers I'm going to cut from my garden to supplement these meagre leftovers. In last week's video, I told you that I was going to reposition this container so that I could actually see the flowers growing from my kitchen windowsill. And now I am growing a cutting garden. It looks beautiful, but I am going to chop so I can enjoy these flowers indoors. I must admit, when I have been doing my cropping of my flowers, I've been ever so slightly nervous about doing it and wanting to get maximum flower for my money. So I don't know whether you remember that first cutting I did for my garden when my plants were only a week old, and I took out a shoot of the delphinium just here and I left the side shoot hoping that it would sprout again. There's just these little glimpses of information that my husband's been imparting over the years, that if you take out the main stem, that the side shoots will grow, and it seems to have happened here. So I'm going to do the same thing with my very heavily flowered spikes of delphinium here, in the hope that the side shoots will sprout as well. And it just means that when I come to arrange my delphiniums, I'll be making a very small jam jar arrangement rather than a huge church-style pedestal. Do you see what I mean? It was this one that I took the main stem out from. So this time I'm going to lean in and cut away, knowing that if I want to put that into a jam jar arrangement, I'm going to have to take off the lower flowers. But for now, that's going straight into my jug so that the flowers can have some water. And then I'm left with a very insignificant stem of flower at the side, but hopefully that will grow a little bit longer over the next week or so. Rather than guessing the name of my flowers, I've always got my Sarah Raven garden journal with me, where I've tucked the plant names in the back. So the more I say it, the more I should remember it. Physostegia, Physostegia, Physostegia. So let's cut some of the Physostegia for my next flower arrangement. So here, this time, instead of cutting off the top spike, I think I'm going to cut really low down into the plant to give myself a rather luxurious length there. What, 40 centimetres long, do you think? I'll cut it shorter when I make my flower arrangement. So I might have a slightly shorter one as well. Why not 3? Flower arrangers like odd numbers. Get those into my little bucket of water, and then my Astrantia is looking absolutely gorgeous. So I've already got that wilted stem in my bucket. We'll have to see whether that comes back to life or not, but I think again I'm going to cut a rather generous length. Just makes me feel more like a flower. Makes me feel more like a flower farmer. Gives me a bit of a buzz, you know. Brownie points for sticking with my gardening for what, 3 weeks now? And then right at the front here, I have got one single zinnia, but I can see where the side shoots are here, so I'm going to cut right down to where those side shoots are coming out. And then one single marigold, grown from seed by my husband, and dare I say it, a rather disappointing crop so far. Not bad, eh? So, 15 minutes weeding, getting rid of my bindweed and my tufts of grass, holding on with those other seedlings because I don't know whether they're going to be free plants or weeds. Now, having looked up online, Googling, how can I tell whether my seedlings are weeds or not, the suggestion was, and now this is when I wish I could remember more of my biology O-level. Monocotyledons, dicotyledons, I just need something in my brain to kick into gear so I can remember all the important facts about the life cycle of plants. But I think that the first 2 leaves that pop up aren't the true leaves, so what I need to do if I'm in the market for some free flowers in my garden is to let my weeds, seedlings, grow a little bit more and then see with the first, what I understand are called the true leaves, grow into a leaf shape that I recognise. And I guess if I recognise it, that's all well and good, I can keep them there. But if I do decide they're weeds, I'll need to get rid of them. And I think probably the easiest way of doing that, do you think it's just to ruffle the surface of the soil with my hands and just get them out, or perhaps to rake over my soil a little bit? Let me know in the comments, what would you do? Get the garden rake out or just go for the hand agitation option? So again, not a massive bucket of flowers, but there's certainly flowers here that I can enjoy and arrange indoors. And in fact, these flowers are coming with me to my flower club class over on YouTube, here on YouTube. So if you're not already a member of my YouTube membership group, where I host a free flower club, where I host a free flower arranging club every month, if you click the join button next to where it says subscribe underneath this video, or click to the description, or click on the description underneath the video, you will find the joining link. So that is where we have our live flower arranging classes, and also where I share extra snippets and videos for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you as well for being my accountability partner. If you weren't here, I'm not sure I would commit to doing 15 minutes of jobs every single day just to keep my garden under control. But with you here cheering me along, I'm sure we can do it together. That's all for me for now, and I'll see you again next time.